I think we're going to see Thaddeus Thunderbolt Ross complete his comic book destiny and become the Red Hulk character.
And that's how, boom, we get mutants.
Much like in the way of like Iron Man ends up birthing every villain in the Marvel universe,
Right.
I think like his lab tinkering will birth She-Hulk.
Welcome back to New Rockstars. I'm Filup Molina. This is Rogue Theory, and today we are talking about how Smart Hulk got all smart. And me not that. But with me to answer that is a bunch of very smart people. We have Erik Voss. Marina Mastros.
Oh,
yeah. Ooh,
we skipped right over this person in the middle.
Because we were supposed to have Tommy Bechtel, but he got food poisoning, so that means off-screen producer Zach.
Yay! I'm the you break the glass if you ever need me.
Guys, on this episode, we're going to talk about the Snyder Cut later, actually, because there's news about that weirdly a few years later. But first, in Avengers Endgame, we all saw it. Yes, Zach.
Yep.
Yes,
Marina.
Yeah.
loved it.
Erik.
Not familiar.
What if I hadn't? What if none of us had?
Yeah, it's my
All
nightmare.
this time.
We would pause and we would all watch it. Hulk is smart in Avengers Endgame, and he's verbal, but it's sudden, right? He just kind of suddenly is that way, and we all thought that, you know, between Infinity War and the Hulk loss and Endgame, we'd get this big explanation of what happened to Hulk in that time, and turns out, nope, we didn't. We just got Hulk with glasses and taking selfies.
And he had
And
that one
dabs.
throwaway line of he was in the Gamma Lab for 18 months, but that doesn't really tell us anything.
Yeah.
Right, but 18 months is a very long time. Yeah. So here's the question, and you guys are allowed to go rogue. In fact, you're encouraged to go rogue here. How did Hulk become Smart Hulk between Infinity War and Endgame? What did Bruce do to make himself all smart-like?
Okay, I have a theory.
Go for it.
Okay, yes.
Calm down.
Guys, I have a theory. Okay, basically, my theory is that Bruce Banner creates the equivalent of CRISPR in the MCU, and in that 18 months, he develops his own technology that allows him to mess with his own genes that makes him able to be Hulk and Bruce Banner at the same time. And that, just like in real life, this technology is very dangerous. It's very powerful.
Funny.
And it's very funny.
Potentially.
Yes.
Yeah.
Lots of metaphors
people,
for deep fryers are up for
Yeah,
grabs.
2-inch tall chimpanzees. I mean, it's
Adorable.
great.
Yeah.
There's one that's
No,
very
they
small and it's
attack.
very cute. That's true. All right, don't mess up my dream of one day owning a small monkey. And so it gets out just like in real life. They have to keep very, very tight control of the technology of CRISPR. In the MCU, someone either steals it, a bad guy like gets a hold of a little bit, or somebody like gets experimented on and they escape or whatever. They accidentally get exposed to the technology, and that's how, boom, we get mutants.
Whoa.
In the MCU.
Hold on. Huge jump. Okay,
Yeah.
wait, but I'm interested in it.
Because you're literally altering people's genes, which is what mutant, like when you mutate.
A mutation,
Yeah, it's
yeah.
just a mutation,
Yeah.
which is what it is. So
So-
that's how, boom, that's the connection.
And I'll throw out there, and in support of it, gamma radiation
Yes.
meeting gene splicing certainly seems like it could
Yeah,
accelerate.
it's specifically gamma radiation. And it's this huge thing. And it really is a metaphor for real life because, you know, some scientists have gone rogue in China using CRISPR, and it's a whole thing. And so I feel like this is a very apt, very accurate metaphor, and I should be given multiple roguies.
I'll give you the first one for the mutants. I think you're misusing the word metaphor, though, about it just happened in real life and then happened in a movie.
Yeah.
There's never been a
Analogy?
proper use of metaphor.
Nobody knows what
Once.
metaphor
Yeah,
means.
Yeah.
whatever you want it to mean.
I'll take it.
So I'll give you that because you brought mutants in.
Yeah,
I
that's right.
also, I'm going to ask, did Bruce Banner do this within these 18 months and casually just not mention it to anyone that he has been experimenting on people? He created a race of mutant kind.
Well, he doesn't do it intentionally because he's a responsible scientist.
Yes.
Right?
So does he know that he did that?
He has created the technology for himself, and then after the events of Endgame, an evil person or somebody sneaks in, steals it, or like the technology is leaked somehow, somebody puts it online, whatever.
Yeah, I mean, I think gamma radiation is going to be the new technological bleeding edge thing that's studied in Phase 4.
Oh,
It's
yeah,
got to
yeah,
be,
yeah.
right? Like,
Yeah.
when that snap
more
happened,
stones.
no more
Okay,
stones,
yeah,
and
you're
all
right.
that's left of them are these traces of gamma radiation that have spread out everywhere. Like,
Yeah.
maybe it's not like Banner's CRISPR in particular, or maybe it is. Maybe it's just like the same thing that gave him his, like, evolution evolution, caused evolution among other people who have these like dormant genes.
That's kind of
all
like the
over
theory
world.
that we've been saying, though, that the snap generated so much gamma radiation. They said that in Endgame, that just altered genes all around the world. But I like the CRISPR version of it because it's like it's perfect storm, right? Like he was messing with DNA to fix himself, and then there's this wave of gamma.
It's like it's a CRISPR version of the theory too.
Yes,
Ooh.
a glove-in, if you will.
Get out of here.
Cool. All right, who's next?
Okay, so I have a theory that doesn't contradict Marina's theory. Could even be a companion theory. A little.
Okay,
theory
all your roguies will go to Marina.
Okay, fair enough. So in that diner scene where there's the kids that want the selfie and Hulk's eating 1,000 pancakes with Ant-Man and Cap and Black Widow, he says, I spent 18 months in the Gamma Lab, which I love that he calls it the Gamma Lab.
Yeah.
And I realized that I used to think that the Hulk was the disease, but that Hulk is actually the cure, right? And that like by melding his two personalities, he could reach some kind of a better state, more enlightened. That was his kind of like way of grieving too for everything that happened. And so I like that metaphor of disease and cure. And so I think, right, he's altered his blood. Maybe in a similar way to the way Marina is talking about, right? Through experiments, maybe it's, again, related to gamma radiation. He's altered the biology of his body. He's altered his blood. And this will have a future impact in that we know we're getting a She-Hulk Disney Plus series.
Yeah.
And in the comics, the origin of She-Hulk is she gets a blood transfusion. She gets shot and she gets a blood transfusion from her cousin, Bruce Banner.
Yeah.
And his blood kind of almost like, if you get a blood transfusion from a vampire, you become a vampire, right? So in the same way, she gets it. Yeah. It's a common occurrence. You have to check a box every time you donate blood. Are you a vampire?
Have you been to Africa? Are you a vampire?
Yeah. Have you eaten beef in England? And
why?
It's delicious. You should try it. They just want to get the word out.
It's just nice. Yeah.
And so I think this is all setting up, right, that what he has done to change his biology will end up affecting his cousin, Jessica Walters, and she will become She-Hulk. Because there's been a lot of different versions of She-Hulk in the comics, just like there's been a lot of different versions of Hulk. But like kind of the most common or the current version of She-Hulk, she is basically like Smart Hulk.
Yeah.
She's she's Hulk all the time. She's smart, literate, while also being super strong.
Yeah.
And very hot.
Yeah.
If you're into that kind of thing. Yeah.
I am.
Okay, well, there you go,
Lawyers.
right? Well, and even I'm excited for this She-Hulk series for a lot of reasons. In that, a big part of like She-Hulk's persona is that like her, the kind of masculine energy is like I want to be big and strong so nobody can hurt me. But like a lot of like her deal was that like she wanted to be beautiful. Is more than big and strong. And so like She-Hulk is kind of the personification of that, just like the Hulk is Bruce Banner.
She can have it all.
Yes.
Yes.
And so like She-Hulk
She
is
doesn't
like
have to choose.
she's like Amazonian. She's like very attractive besides being green. Not that
What do you mean besides being
not that there's
green?
anything wrong with being green.
Have you ever had green beef in Berlin?
This is
Nice alliteration.
That means something else, I think.
That's a thing.
Yeah.
I'm trying to get the word out.
Don't Google it.
So I think he changed his blood, and that will lead to, much like in the way of like Iron Man ends up birthing every villain in the Marvel universe.
Right.
I think like his lab tinkering will birth She-Hulk. I also think it kind of ties in like mutations as a blood-borne pathogen or something like that.
He's
ties
Blade.
in nice. Yeah, we know we're getting Blade, right? We know we're getting vampires
He's the
in the
Daywalker's
MCU.
blood, yeah.
So not to say that causes vampires, but they're starting to plant those ideas of like blood.
Bruce Banner
leads
just
to-
has
It's the future.
No funny.
Are you guys?
They're referencing a viral video from 15 years ago. Yeah.
It's very funny.
Not funny.
No funny.
So I like this idea that Bruce Banner has gross blood and he's just shaking it on everybody, just transforming people left and right. with his Hulk
In my
blood.
version, he's very careful, and that one he just goes around throwing
Yeah,
it.
a bunch of pinpricks and everything.
You don't want to know what his urine does. Okay.
What is it?
What does it
Smells
do?
awful. It smells terrible.
Yeah. Makes sense. It destroys toilets. So essentially Marina's idea is the answer to your question.
But his is
though.
gross.
And
Yeah.
then yours is just a grosser one, but it makes a hotter person.
Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah, although hers made all the mutants.
Yeah, Jean Grey and Rogue and all the other cute mutants.
But
I'm going to give you Rogie for all your hard work on this show.
For all your hard work.
This is a lifetime achievement, Rogie.
Not the theory, but
This is the Cecil B. DeMille Rogie.
Basically. The Erik Voss.
oh, that's great.
Boss Voss.
Boss
His
Voss?
name's Boss.
Erik Voss.
Erik Voss.
Exactly.
The idea I was having for this, because, I mean, you could ask yourself, why now? Like, why are we talking about this now? For one, because Hulk's future is the most undetermined in the MCU, and he's just there, and there's so many questions we have about him. We also are wondering, why did Hulk wait to now to merge his identities?
Yeah.
Like, there was a 5-year gap between, them killing Thanos at the beginning of Endgame and then what happened after. But why didn't he do any of this research before? How did it just come to him now? What had changed? And I think what had changed now is a lot of the Avengers got either erased or they were no longer active on Earth after the blip. Notice though, what we saw after those 5 years went by, he became a celebrity. Hulk is like now the front man. Like kids are coming up asking for his autograph.
He's the cool one.
He's the cool one. There's a deleted scene with Dominic Val Johnson where Hulk jumps into a burning building and saves a bunch of people.
The father from Family Matters.
It's also Powell from Die Hard, and they had him do it like kind of a cameo as a firefighter outside of a burning building, like it was Nakatomi Plaza.
Eddie.
It's one of the coolest cameos. It's a bummer that it didn't make it in the movie, but it was a big hero moment for Hulk that he never had before. Because remember, Hulk was like kind of a jerk. People hated him because he kept breaking stuff to where he had to leave the planet. So what I think is
that's a pretty big jerk.
They make you leave the planet.
We don't want you.
I believe that in that 5-year period, governmental figures like Thaddeus Thunderbolt Ross looked to Bruce Banner as the one that they could trust to help keep the Earth in check. Because remember, he doesn't trust Cap or any of his friends because they were fugitives for years. Bruce Banner's like
he's Switzerland.
Yeah, he's a guy that you can trust. He's a smart guy who's not Iron Man. So I think what had happened is Bruce Banner's Gamma Lab was infused with government resources, that stuff that we also know had Kree technology and Skrull technology, and that is what helped him unlock his gamma radiation abilities so that he could find this middle ground. I think what they could be setting up is that Hulk will be the front man of the MCU Thunderbolts as one of these redemptive figures who's given a second chance to be a hero, teamed up by Ross.
Give us some bio on Thunderbolts.
So the Thunderbolts is like a group that existed in the Marvel Comics. It was originally like Baron Zemo's group, and it was like him trying to create these bad guys who pretended to be the new Avengers to fill in the gap after the Avengers were all done. Do you say Billie Eilish?
Yeah.
But what had happened is they all kind of turned on Zemo, who was an asshole, and they kind of became actual redemptive heroes. Goliath was part of them, and they were actually like a group, kind of like a spinoff Avengers. And I think we're going to see the version of that in the MCU. No longer the Avengers. They're going to be like this experimental group called the Thunderbolts. You might see characters like Black Widow, but Yelena Belova, Black Widow. We've talked about this before.
Ghost from Ant-Man and Wasp.
Some of these other Red Guardian from the Black Widow movie.
So now connect us back to thick ass Thaddeus.
So I think, speaking of thick ass Thaddeus,
there's a dog on set. Speaking of,
you're interested in the Red Hulk theory too, aren't you?
Oh, bubbies.
Wonderful.
Shut up, Erik. There's a dog.
Get that Erik out of the way. So I think where we're going is Red Hulk. I think we're going to see Thaddeus Thunderbolt Ross complete his comic book destiny and become the Red Hulk character as the villain that they're going to be set in, because there's so much Hulk stuff that can happen, but they can't do it as a Hulk movie. They're going to have to backdoor it in other movies and other TV series.
You get a silver Rogie for bringing a dog in.
That's what it was all by my design.
Very sweet.
Yeah. Just so you guys know, I mean, future episodes, you can cheat very easily.
Just bring an animal.
Bring a
Bring a
dog,
pup.
And now silver Rogies are worth 25.
Two Rogies. I've established. Two
five.
Rogies.
Okay.
Double Rogie.
Got it.
Yes.
No, I'm into it, but mostly just bringing in. And Thaddeus is such a funny name to me.
Yeah, it is.
But
William
Thunderbolt
Hurts,
Ross.
this is his time It's his time. It's his
I
time.
feel like now that Jeremy Irons is doing so great on Watchmen, William Hurt is just like, I got to get mine.
Yeah.
William Hurt's
That
great.
dude's on my corner.
Yeah.
We're both like old dudes in movies.
Yeah.
Oh, well, great theory, Harry.
Thank you.
Yeah, but mostly great dog. Guys, let's go play with the dog. In the meantime, here's a quick message from us.
Hey guys, Eric here. Just a reminder that New Rockstars is offering exclusive rewards to our patrons in the form of bonus videos each month. For November, I did an in-depth breakdown of the opening sequence of Raiders of the Lost Ark and how it so perfectly defined Indiana Jones as a hero and foreshadowed everything to follow in that film, including Nazis' heads exploding. You can get exclusive access to that video along with lots of other behind-the-scenes content and just a general good feeling of helping this channel grow by becoming an official patron of New Rockstars Digital Studios. Just go to patreon.com/newrockstars. Again, that's patreon.com/newrockstars.
Guys, a previous episode of Rogue Theory, there was a wish. I wasn't here. Marina was hosting, and there was a wish that in a future episode, people would come dressed as Wednesday Addams. And we can't afford Wednesday Addams costumes for everyone. So real quick, as a quick nod to that wish, and who was it that won that episode?
Danny Spiso.
Yeah,
Danny
Danielle
Spiso. This is for you, Danny Spiso. The post-production team is going to make each of us look like Wednesday Addams for a quick second. So everybody hold still. And be your best Wednesday Addams. I hope they put something in my fingers that work. I'm rubbing my braids.
I was just very serious.
Yeah.
Just did a very serious expression. Yeah.
Great. All right. That's for you, Spizo. All right.
Yay!
But also in the last week, there were some tweets, and they were a seismic shift in the events of the Warner Brothers DC universe. Because Ben Affleck and Gal Gadot.
Yeah.
Gal Gadot. The Ben Affleck's Batman. You guys know that?
Yeah, I was just waiting for you to-
Because Ben Affleck and Gal Gadot both tweeted they want the Snyder Cut version of Justice League released.
Yes.
Now, all this time later.
Yeah.
Also, Jason Momoa has been posting about this in general, and Zack Snyder capped it all off with retweeting all these people and then himself once again, #release the Snyder Cut. So there's a lot of energy out of freaking nowhere about this right now in 2021 or whatever year that we're in. So I want to know what is going on here. Why has this suddenly gained so much steam? Why are people suddenly so obsessed with the Snyder Cut of Justice League and not the director's cut of Thor: Dark World that I worked on very hard in my class?
Release the Filup cut.
Yeah.
Well, here's my theory on this. I think that the whole Release the Snyder Cut movement is just that. It is a grassroots movement. And I've always felt weird weighing in on it. We talked about it when Justice League came out because it's not like coming from the creators originally. It's not coming from like Snyder originally. It was from the ground up.
Rumor initially that there could be one.
It was like, it's essentially a conspiracy theory, not always a terrible one, because I think we've seen, Richard Donner had a great director's cut of Superman 2. Ridley Scott had a better director's cut of Blade Runner. So, and Snyder did have stuff from his original cut that got cut from the film when Whedon took over. And maybe it's better, maybe it's just more, but it clearly was not finished. But my theory on this is I think this is essentially a much, much smaller movement than the media and that social media in particular is making it out to be.
And us.
I
We're
think it's
doing it.
That's why I've
We're part of the problem.
well, anytime we talk about it, it's like we can see our analytics. Way fewer people are interested in this topic than Twitter would have you believe. And if
Let's
you look
belabor
at
it.
the number, the number of people,
Is that horse dead? Should we?
the number of people who signed this petition was 180,000 to
Okay.
release the Snyder
That
Cut.
sounds like a lot, though.
Sounds like
That's
a lot.
small town.
Compare it to another thing that a lot of people brushed off, people who signed the petition to reshoot Game of Thrones final season,
Yeah.
10 times the amount of people, 1.80 million people.
1.8
The population
million.
of China.
Yeah. So I think I'm going to call this group of people the releasers because I think it is akin
The
to
180,000.
yeah, and I think it's way smaller than that.
Oh, really?
I think 180,000
But
people
that's
signed the
release.
petition,
Yeah.
and I think a lot of those people just weren't crazy about the Justice League cut that they saw. I wouldn't be surprised if the number is as small as 1,000 people who are on, that's just a central tier, who are on these message boards, who are saying, we got to target these people to try to get them to tweet, release the Snyder Cut. I think there's a wider tier beyond that of maybe upwards of 100,000 people who are just like active on it and curious about it.
Yeah.
And then beyond that, everyone else who's just like tweeting are just like participants.
So the 1,000 people, though, you think they kind of are like, twiddling their thumbs at work, waiting to get home to do their bidding of trying to manipulate the system and make it seem like
they're doing it at work.
I think they're on Reddit. I think they're on
like
4chan
multiple
right
accounts,
now.
that kind of thing.
Well, then my question is why? Why are even no matter how small the group is, why are they so hyper motivated for this one cause?
I think their motives are actually fairly pure. I think there's a lot of people who dismiss this thing as like, oh, it's toxic. They just like to sabotage the Rotten Tomatoes score of Marvel films because they're mad. No, I think honestly, a lot of DC fans are right to feel like a little shortchanged because honestly, DC comics are way more, they're better. I love Marvel Comics characters. I love the MCU, the Marvel Cinematic Universe, far better.
Yeah.
But like without Spider-Man, Marvel Comics, and without Spider-Man, maybe without X-Men, like the Avengers comics in the 70s and 80s weren't that great.
Yeah.
Like not a lot of people really loved them until like Feige made this great cinematic universe. DC Comics, like, they're so thematic and rich with characters. Their villains are amazing. And just like Warner hasn't been able to put together the right formula of the movies that have worked. Snyder has done his best. Nolan did a great job with the Dark Knight trilogy, but it just hasn't really come together.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of DC fans feel like rightfully like missing out. They're like, we want our good version of this.
Yeah.
And in their eyes, Snyder's mysterious cut that they've gotten hints of is like this imaginary thing that I don't believe fully exists, that they've been able to pin their hopes to. And they think that by just like seeing the raw, untampered version of this, they can finally get, and I don't think it really exists. And I hope it never gets released for that reason, because I think when they see it, they'll be like, oh, this is just like Zack Snyder's Ultimate Edition of Batman v Superman, which is, it's not better. It's just more of what was already there. What was already there was flawed. It wasn't great.
I don't think we have to agree about the details of whether or not Marvel or DC comics are better, to agree on just the fact that it is their wish that this is the one thing stopping them from having the dream movie that they've wanted to have.
Right.
And it, from what we've seen with these films, although Marvel has rebooted Spider-Man 3 times, but from what you see, you only get in your prime years, like maybe you see 2 solid goes at these things, and we got we already had our kind of Michael Keaton series all the way through Val Kilmer, and we got our Nolan Batman series, and then we got these where we have Ben Affleck and all those things. It kind of is probably a little bit of a belief that maybe we're not going to get another take on this, so maybe it's back there. There is still a great one,
something there,
because they're worried that they'll never get a good one.
Right.
Yeah, I could see that. You get a Rogie.
So.
That's great.
Yeah.
That's great.
And the reason I don't talk about it is it's like it's not a real news story. It's manufactured, and I feel like if we were to talk about it on social media, specifically use that hashtag, we're just playing into like a small contingency of people who are just trying to use us to further that message, and I don't want to be part of it.
It's not a
We
real.
all
It's not,
tweeted it though.
I've
Except
never
for you.
tweeted release.
it's not a real news story like how did Smart Hulk happen?
Right.
Yeah, right. This is the stuff that people are clamoring.
It's a movie that came out, and we can at least describe and appreciate it.
I do think that's part of it. That's part of the movement. But I think who's stoking the flames, Zack Snyder, as we've talked about, like he's teased fans with like a still image from a shot that he did that never made it in the final. And like he's obviously like encouraging people like Jason Momoa to keep this going by like showing them clips and stuff like that. I think secretly, Zack Snyder does not want the Snyder Cut released.
Ooh.
And I think
How come?
I think the Snyder Cut is more powerful to Zack Snyder as an idea than it is as a film.
Yes.
And I think he's using this specifically because like he worked his way up through movies like 300 and whatever, and Dawn of the Dead remake, Watchmen, right? Into that top tier of people that can afford to can get a Batman movie, right?
Yeah.
There's not a lot of people that are at that level. And now I think he feels like he's been knocked down. He had a kind of a rough streak. Man of Steel, Batman v Superman, Justice League, a lot of people were disappointed by those, and kind of his general vision for DC. So I think this is his way of being like, no, those weren't disappointments. I was held back. Right? It's not if you didn't like any of those movies, it wasn't my fault.
Yeah.
This was the higher ups and the muckety mucks keeping me from being able to realize my full vision.
Yeah.
It's Logan Paul right now saying that I didn't actually lose that fight against KSI. It was because of
was rigged.
It was basically the ref made a mistake, and he said, "What kind of man would I be if I didn't stand up for what I believe in? That I actually won that fight." It's the same thing of just standing up against the man is the only, because they're the ones that made it bad.
And I think like there's something there's this movement, especially among like a certain type of filmmaker who has like a very nerdy fan base. I'm thinking of like Kevin Smith, who's like, had kind of not quite the same arc as Zack Snyder. They're totally different genres, like comedy versus like action. But like Kevin Smith now has realized that like as his market has shrunken, he's never going to have $1 billion movie, but he can have these smaller movies with super passionate fan bases.
Yeah.
And so I think this is Zack Snyder being like, I see the future. I don't need 10 million people to love my movies. I want 100,000 that'll ride or die with me.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Yang
You know?
Gang kind of thing.
Yang Gang, right?
Right,
Yeah.
like I'm just gonna get these people to be obsessive about me.
Yes.
I will throw your way that there is precedent for how people feel about James Gunn now,
Yes.
post all that
Yeah.
drama, where they're like, "Oh, we're not going to get the James Gunn version of this movie," and then he used that and negotiated Suicide Squad 2,
Yeah.
and now suddenly we are kind of excited about Suicide Squad 2, and then he's back on Marvel properties, and now we're like triply excited, and then everybody
Carrot and
became
the
a
horse or
James Gunn
whatever, right?
stan suddenly
Yeah.
because it felt like he had been wronged, and Zack Snyder's on the sidelines like, well, wait, hold on, we can do that?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I think there's something to be said for that, right? Like we love it when like an actor off screen has a narrative arc. Robert Downey Jr.
Yeah.
Right? Iron Man was redemptive for him as a person.
Right.
Maybe there's a little bit of that. We want that for a director too.
Yeah.
That's kind of like M. Night has had a little bit of a resurgence. And part of
He's
that is
he has
Well,
balls
yeah.
and balls and fire. Like he keeps being given
it's
chances.
a Geiger counter or whatever, right? It just bounces wildly. But like part of that was like he kind of had that same arc of like huge director, one of the top in Hollywood, had just
Yeah.
kind of like a series of like worsening movies, gets totally in the doghouse, and then like kind of comes back with some new kind of smaller films, and people are like, "Whoa, I kind of like M. Night again." I wonder if that's Zack Snyder being like, "That's the writing on the wall."
So Eric's idea is that the movement doesn't really exist.
Or
Yours-
it's just a lot
It's
smaller.
just very small.
Small. It works for what I'm setting up. The movement doesn't really exist. Zach's is that the cut doesn't really
Yes.
exist. Marina,
Mine
you
is
don't really
that
exist. No.
is that I'm not actually here. Mine is that this whole conspiracy, the fandom doesn't exist. None of this actually exists. It's just the studio.
Ooh.
Oh, that's
wow.
the truly sobering view. Yeah.
I was very
wait, hold
hopeful
on.
with your theory.
I forgot to give a Rogie to Zach for his,
Yay!
but Marina already gets a Rogie
Yay!
because the system, man.
Yeah,
She has
the
a capitalist
system.
argument. Yeah,
Take
that's
it
true.
down.
So you think Warner is behind
Yeah.
all this?
Is what? Yeah, is behind all of it. Yeah, because because Gal Gadot tweeted, or Gadot, right?
Mm-hmm.
Ben Affleck tweeted, or Affleck.
a lot.
It's a soft K.
Yeah, an awful lot. Yeah.
And you have to like have some influence to get them to tweet. Wasn't it on the same day?
Yes.
Yeah.
And it was a day after Momoa, I think, too.
Yeah,
they were
like-
all like, it was a coordinated effort.
Yeah,
Yes.
you
Or a
one
case
might even say a
demolitions.
coordinated effort,
Yeah.
and it's
Yeah.
like you have to get so many things to their attention. Like their publicists were like, "Hey, you gotta try to tweet this today, right?" And it's all for. I think they actually are going to release it, but they're going to release it on HBO Max only. To
The
get
upcoming
people-
streaming service that costs $20 freaking dollars, I believe, but maybe they've reduced the price. I think
It's going to be the most expensive
Yeah.
streaming. I think it's
Yeah.
like 16 or something.
just
like
quick
that. Yeah.
reminder that we already pay for HBO, and that's not what we're talking about. This is additional.
Max.
Yeah,
Yes.
2021 is when
Yeah.
it's supposed to
Yeah.
come out.
So
I think.
HBO Max, the Warner Brothers effort of streaming, sure.
And even if they hunt those 180,000, people. It's like
to sign up, 1,000
well,
more.
right, yeah. But if I didn't sign the petition, but like if I had enough gumption to be like, I'm gonna sign this petition, it's like, well, I really want to see that cut.
Yeah.
Hey, if it does exist, I want to see it.
Yeah.
I'll watch more of it. I'll watch every deleted scene of every movie we talk
Yeah.
about. I'm just curious. Out of
Yeah.
curiosity, I'll see it.
But sticking with this idea, this is all a marketing ploy
Yes,
for
yeah.
the release of HBO Max.
Years in the making.
Wow.
If they're pulling that off, that's
If
incredible.
you
Pretty
think-
brilliant.
Studios are about making money. If you think they're not doing their due diligence and their research on like social media and how to use it to make money, like get out of here. Like, of course, it's literally someone's job to do this kind of thing.
Yeah.
Probably.
Quick argument in your favor. It is an open secret in this town that the whole stupid Netflix Bird Box phenomenon, the Bird Box challenge, kids are getting hurt doing the Bird Box challenge, right? Completely manufactured by Netflix. Nobody was doing the Bird Box challenge, especially considering nobody had seen it yet.
Right.
It was like the day it came out, and it was like, oh God, I did the Bird Box challenge. And, now my life is
not
great.
to say that they do it well always.
Yeah,
Sometimes
but
they do it
a lot
poorly.
of people didn't know that.
Yeah.
But there were 100 articles written about it.
Totally.
Like, probably more. Of like, don't let your kids do it.
Yeah.
Ton of free publicity. Bird Box was the most watched film that Thanksgiving.
Yeah, it's
I
so
watched
easy to cherry pick anecdotal social media posts and call it a movement.
Yeah.
But numbers don't lie. And like we're in the business, like so much of our business here on New Rockstars is looking at the numbers of things and looking at what is really trending.
Yeah.
And the Snyder cut has never trended and compared
wow.
to anything else we've talked about. I think it is
Yeah.
like it's a smaller
It's
thing.
just-
It's
but
either
they're trying
controlled
to-
by like a studio side or it's a small contingency of like 100 people in Macedonia. But either way, it's not a real story.
I'll also say, in backing up Marina's argument, I mean, it does seem like maybe DC Warner has kind of figured some stuff out. Only in that, like, the press ahead of the Robert Pattinson, the Batman, is like kind of good. And
Yeah,
the buzz
it
is
is.
really positive. They're coming off a Joker that was kind of their best received movie in a while. Maybe they have kind of cracked the code a little bit, because I think that's something that affected Snyder's DC movies. Didn't feel like they had quite the buzz that a lot of the MCU movies can generate ahead of their release, where like everybody's dying to see the trailer and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Well,
so
and
they're going a different route.
Do you know one of the biggest reasons why Joker has such positive reviews? Not just it's a fine film, and there's plenty of reasons to like it. But one of the reasons why people are obsessed with it is because of the drama of other people saying that it went too far and this shouldn't be allowed to be shown to kids. So, you know, as the passions get risen, I mean, this is why we have the bipartisan issues, or the lack of that in our country, is because everything was pushed as in everything's life or death. So you better be 100% on everything.
Yeah, you have to have an opinion on it. So
Yeah.
you have to weigh
But also,
in.
you can't even disagree with your own party, right?
Yeah.
So if you're a DC stan now, like,
Yeah.
and there's DC drama, and they're hiding the Snyder cut for some reason, like, now
You
you're
gotta
gonna be
get
obsessed
on
with
board,
it.
yeah.
So here's the thing: I'm gonna put one rogie on the line up
my
here,
gosh.
but we're gonna make this democratic because I actually liked all of these answers.
Ooh.
So Marina basically is saying that the studios are behind this thing the whole time. Zach is saying that basically Zack Snyder and maybe his publicist or
Fellow Zach.
people.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So you guys all have that
It's
mind
the Zach
link.
conspiracy.
Yeah, you all can read each other's minds, but you share one brain. And Erik is saying that it's a couple of motivated fans are clever enough
Yeah.
to make it seem like it's a much bigger movement. You guys vote on which seems the most likely.
Between the three of us?
Yeah,
I mean, I think there's a little bit. I'm actually this is not doing us any favors. I think it's a combination of the two things. I think it's a studio that recognized a small vocal minority, and they're like, let's capitalize on this.
Can only vote for one, Zach.
Okay, well,
Yeah, but I think you are right that like all of ours are true in some
You
step
gave
of it.
up so easily. You
I
gave
think
up
it-
so easily.
I think it began over here in Crackpot Corner with the grassroots thing,
Crackhead
co-opted
Corner?
by the Crackpot Corner. The director recognized this movement and used it for his own purposes. The studio is now capitalizing off it as all possible. But I think if one of us has to be most right, I think Marina's probably the
Okay,
most
I vote for myself because they muddied the waters. I'm voting for myself.
Okay, it's
Clear, free
Marina.
and clear.
All right, I'm gonna give one to Marina,
Yay!
and then actually one to Erik, because he did tie them all together in a way that did work.
Yeah.
Zach, maybe if you had brought all of them together, I would have pulled it. Oh, you're letting them hear your real voice for the first time.
I'm off screen, Zach.
That was the sound that we sometimes hear wafting in.
the squeaks, and then we put some cheese out, and you get busy. Guys, it's time for rogue questions. It could throw these point totals all over the place,
Oh,
but
gosh.
as a quick update, Marina has 3, Zach
Yep.
has 2, and Erik has
27.
No,
Aw.
has 4.
Oh, okay.
All right, great. So these are questions that I have not seen. You guys haven't either.
Nope.
And we'll reward some points. Adam Driver said in an interview this week that he kept a lot of the props from the Rise of Skywalker
Ooh.
set. What's the weirdest thing Adam Driver is doing at home with his lightsaber?
Oh God!
And
With
this is
his
that
lightsaber
fiery one.
specifically?
Yeah.
Well, I've always dreamt of like they have like blenders that also heat.
Oh.
So you can make like a hot soup.
Ooh.
I mean, what better way to stir a soup
Yeah.
than
Now,
with a lightsaber?
I didn't know you were this boring. Like, what better?
You
You have
can
to
make a nice blended
a nice hot
Guys,
soup.
because
it's fall and he
come
wants
on my
to be
companion
cozy.
show, Soup Theory.
Yeah, exactly.
Maybe he
We're
has on a
talking
knit
bisques.
sweater.
We're just talking
He
bisques.
could be crocheting. He could be doing anything.
He's doing Sudoku.
Yeah.
I could have asked any question, and your answer would have been hot soup related.
Hot soup.
Anybody else?
He's using it to singe off his body hair so he can keep doing
Whoa.
shirtless.
Oh, nice. Yeah,
And this is in a world where lightsabers are real.
Only above the belly button.
It's full
The rest will
fur
always be covered.
downstairs, yeah.
Yeah.
It's the
He's
world's most dangerous dildo.
I mean, God, girls and their dirty jokes. Marina making a
You
dirty
can
joke
bleep it
at
if you
Roki. What am I gonna bleep? You didn't. If you acted it out, we'd have to blur it though.
Yeah.
And Zach gets one because it's almost lunchtime and I'm hungry.
Mulligatawny.
Oh wait, no, hold on.
His
And
answer
then
was cozy and cute.
Eric gets a little baby one because I think the image is
For
funny.
the quarter I give about release the Snyder Cut.
All right, next real question.
Yay.
Parasite. If you guys have seen
Yes.
this, and Snowpiercer director Bong Joon-ho.
Ho.
Yeah.
Hi.
Heyo.
Says he'll never direct a superhero. You broke Eric. A superhero movie because he hates to see people wearing tight clothing. Yeah.
He said that. Yeah.
What other kind of weird, stupid phobia could keep you from liking a superhero movie?
Oh, that's great. Well, definitely if you have a phobia against white people. 'Cause most of the people in superhero movies are white people.
Yeah.
Give him a point. That's great.
Yeah, you know what?
That's
just
great.
rewatch
That's
Avengers
good.
Endgame when every Marvel character
Yeah.
in the Marvel Cinematic Universe shows up on screen at the same time, and the minorities are aliens.
Yeah.
And that's where they are.
Yeah.
We have our
From one
representation.
country
Yeah.
in
Exactly.
Africa.
Yeah.
Or in Asia,
I
yeah.
can't believe that wasn't my answer. Good job,
Yeah.
Zach.
I
Wow.
scooped Marina.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, that's what white people do best, right? All right, guys,
Give
we're just gonna
yourself a Rogie.
move
Let's
on. It's fine. Zach will just take it. It came out this week that it cost $5 million. Oh my God, to fix the Sonic the Hedgehog design.
That's it.
$5 million could have.
Sounds like a little. Am I wrong? Am I wrong?
You'd rather it go toward that than like
It is
people.
far less than I thought they would spend.
Only because, the movie maybe cost
Yeah.
$100 million or
But
something
you're right.
like
What
that.
should it have?
You guys, what terrible VFX movie would they have to pay you $5 million to watch?
Oh,
What? I'll watch.
That's a fun
I'll watch
question.
anything for $5.
If you get paid to watch something,
Yeah.
So we're
$5
just
million.
ragging on bad VFX here. Clash of the Titans, maybe?
I really hate anytime they do a human face and you get into that uncanny valley. I gotta say it would be very hard for me to rewatch the Matrix sequels.
Oh yeah.
I don't know if I need $5 million, but I'd need
The
at least
twins.
I need at least $55 probably.
Yeah. Some of those shots with Agent Smith were pretty well done, but the rubbery movement when they were fighting is pretty tough.
There's
to
a
look at.
very small. This is like for two people, but there's there's one episode in The Walking Dead. I think it's season 7 where they have a CGI deer.
Yes. Oh yes.
And it was made fun of all over the internet because it just looked crazy. And then also the tiger is not great in that. But
Well, they
I
killed
watched
the tiger
those
so
for
fast.
free. So
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
But I would rewatch it for $5 million.
What's yours, Philip?
Probably just that the baby that looks like the bad design Sonic in the Twilight movies. You've seen that?
Yeah,
Full
I've
set of
seen
teeth.
Oh my god, yeah.
So
Super
creepy.
creepy
So
baby.
weird.
And it's face doesn't stay on the head, right? But it is vampire blood.
Also, everybody looks creepy in that movie. Can we all acknowledge that?
Yeah.
Everybody
Yeah.
has a weird wig or
Yeah.
weird makeup on. I
Oh,
don't know.
totally.
Or they sparkle.
Robert, sorry. Yeah, Robert Pattinson was our special guest this week to do our
We
outro.
had to bump him.
Sorry,
Yeah.
Robert.
You should have filled in for Tommy, really.
Let's no points on that one. So let's see where we ended up. Remember, our
pile mine
point
up.
winner will get their wish granted.
Ooh.
The other two will get the opposite of their wish has to happen to them. So Marina, how many you got?
4.
Zach?
4.
But mine are taller than his.
Eric?
It looks like 27.2 or 4.25.
4.25. It's not
Close.
who's lying. The points do matter. So,
Very
Marina,
close.
you're gone.
Dang it.
Zach, you have to speak in your normal voice from now on. Eric, everyone must work McClunky into their sentences as much as possible. McClunky.
McClunky.
Yeah.
McClunky.
And people can Google that and realize
yeah,
they don't
yeah.
get that reference.
Yeah, McClunky.
That's a McClunky of this McClunky. Thanks for going McClunky with us. Thanks so much to our McClunkies. Marina?
You can find me on McClunky at McClunky Mastros on Twitter. McClunky.
Yo, McClunks.
Don't McClunky follow me on any social medias. I'd never tweet or post, so it's not McClunky worth it.
Plug something with your McClunky.
Yeah, that's right.
I'd like to see that McClunky. I feel so McClunky to spend an afternoon with all of you. You can find me at McClunky.
And what McClunkies do we have coming out this McClunky?
We're doing a McClunky of McClunky and Mac and a Lunky.
Gotcha.
But not Lunky.
Oh.
But to be honest, we got an Empire Strikes Back breakdown coming out.
Yeah.
We're continuing the Star Wars rewatch series. We're going to be doing some more analyses of these McClunky Endgame deleted scenes. And Rick and Morty season 4 has been great so far.
Yes.
So can't wait to
McClunky.
McClunky more of that.
Yeah.
All right. McClunky.